Hi, everybody. This is Aaron Smith, and I am going to talk to you a little bit about the classroom rules that I have that I use every day. And to get started, I'm just going to show you a picture of the poster that I actually have in my room. This is obviously there in the front of the classroom where all the students can see it, so that every day they're constantly reminded about the classroom rules. In addition to that, I'm showing you another picture right here, which is a PowerPoint slide. Every day I use a PowerPoint to kind of organize and manage the class, let the kids know what they're doing, and to provide some visual scaffolding for my ESL students. And um, essentially, I start off every single class period with these rules. And once again, that is to remind the students just constantly of the expectations that I have for them and the rules that I want them to abide by. Okay, now I'm going to take you through a little PowerPoint. I'm going to talk you through a PowerPoint where I just explain the rules that I have and why I have them. First, let me talk a little bit about the rules that I had in place before. When I was beginning the year last year, not this year, but in the year of 2013, the school year 2013 to 2014, I used an acronym to help students remember my expectations and the rules of the classroom, and that was SOAR, S-O-A-R. And I used it as SOAR because the mascot at Seneca High School is the Red Hawk. And S stood for stay on task, O stood for offer your best, A stood for act responsibly, and R stood for respect does the rest. Now, while that worked okay, I ran into some specific issues. With that, it was short and simple, and I thought it covered a lot of things. But I teach a lot of freshmen and sophomores, so I felt like I needed more specific rules that dealt with some of the issues that I was witnessing and encountering in my classes. So I came up with this list of 5 rules, and those 5 are: number 1, follow directions quickly; number 2, raise your hand to speak; number 3, raise your hand to leave your seat; and number 4, make wise choices, followed by make Mr. Smith happy. So, number 1, follow directions quickly. Obviously, I have students that if I allow them to delay or there's not a sense of urgency in the classroom, they're going to get off task. So I want my students to realize that when I tell them to do something to get moving and get started on an activity, that means that they should follow that quickly. When I tell them to put their cell phones away, they need to listen and they need to pay attention and they need to follow those directions quickly. That provides for the creation of what I feel is the optimum learning environment. This along with the other 4 rules that I have. 2, raise your hand to speak. I actually have a very small classroom, and although I want to encourage as much discussion as possible, especially around my ESL students, it's also a very tiny room, and if everyone talks at once, then we have trouble hearing each other, and it's very difficult for us to have a conversation. So I explain to my students the why you need to raise your hand to speak. So that is rule number 2. Number 3, raise your hand to leave your seat. I tell my students that, it's just a matter of respect. I get really distracted when I'm trying to teach a class and someone is up out of his or her seat. So it's very important for me that if you do need to get up, whether it's to use the pencil sharpener to go get a drink of water, I have no problem in doing that as long as you just let me know and that you avoid doing that when we are in the middle of class and when we're in the middle of direct teacher-led instruction. Now, I think every good set of rules has some umbrella rules that kind of catch everything else, so that you can streamline the rules and so that it's easy for your students to remember and so that it covers just lots of different things. So number 4 is make wise choices. And I like to give my students examples about this, like, don't put gum in your friend's hair. That would not be a wise choice. Don't slide on the floor as you come into the classroom. That would not be a wise choice. Don't throw garbage on the floor. That's not wise. Don't try to throw things out the window if you're seated next to the window. And I give them a lot of kind of funny examples, but it helps them to get the picture and understand the big idea, which is, act responsibly. And I tell them always that, I'm going to treat you like young adults, and I expect you to behave yourselves responsibly like young adults should. And number 5, this is pretty funny. Make Mr. Smith happy, and essentially it's the same thing as make wise choices, but I always tell them now, before you do something, ask yourself, would this make Mr. Smith happy? Before I start texting in class, if Mr. Smith sees this, will it make him happy? Before I get up out of my seat and walk past Mr. Smith while he's teaching, will this make Mr. Smith happy? Before I come into a classroom and sit down in Mr. Smith's desk seat and start messing with his things, will this make Mr. Smith happy? And if the answer is no, then I ask them not to do that. So, basically, these are my classroom rules. I found them to work pretty well. Sometimes I'll adjust them a little bit. I'll add a 6th rule sometimes. So, in particular, this year I had a class that I was having a lot of trouble with cell phone usage. So I just said straight up, no cell phones allowed. I will collect them. And that got rid of that quickly. And then in another class, I had some students that spilled some food and drink. So I told them, we're on hiatus from having food and drink in this classroom until further notice. So that was rule 6. So it's still malleable. It's small enough that if I need to add an extra rule here or there to accommodate what's going on in my experience in the classroom, then that's available. But so far, these have worked pretty well. And my students have a good time. Not a good time. They have a good understanding of them and what they mean. And it's easy for them to remember. And that's the number one thing. And whenever I correct them for what they do, I always bring it back to the rules. So if somebody throws a pencil at someone else or something of that nature. Now, Carlos, was that a wise decision? Was that a wise choice? I expect you to make wise choices. Things like that. And of course, I wouldn't kind of call that student out in class. I would tuck that student outside and have a hallway conversation. But anyway, these are how I run my classroom, how my classroom works, and it seems to be doing very well. So I hope this was informative for you, and I hope that you enjoyed watching it as well. Thanks for watching.